Because we tend to be, as teachers, so self-sacrificing and
Yes.
so self-effacing, and we think that it's a boost to our ego to
Hmm.
sacrifice ourselves, right?
Yes. We're martyrs.
Uh, Oh, that's a great, yeah, we're total
Yeah.
martyrs. You are listening to the Music Ed Mentor Podcast, where we help music educators build, manage, and grow thriving school music programs and have long and happy careers. Our last episode featured 7 secrets for staying happy and healthy this holiday season, though you really could apply them year-round, let's be honest. And this episode, this very one you're listening to, I bring on the Zen Teacher, Dan Tricarico, to give you some more ideas, either for you to implement during this busy season to just be more calm and zen in your classroom, or to help you start the new year all brand new in January. Dan has been a member of the West Hills High School English department for over 25 years. He's the author of The Zen Teacher, Creating Focus, Simplicity, and Tranquility in the Classroom. And he's about to finish his second book, which is called Sanctuaries, Self-Care Secrets for Stressed Out Teachers. In his spare time, he enjoys writing, listening to music, especially roots rock and the blues. He likes to read mystery novels, stare out of windows, and watch movies. Dan will also be presenting at the 2019 International Music Education Summit. I brought in Dan for this episode to talk about some of the major lifestyle changes, or maybe minor lifestyle changes, that you can make that will help you over the next year. Like, what can we do to be more calm and centered, no matter what is happening in the classroom? How can we deal with frustrating students, parents, colleagues, and administration without just wanting to quit? How can we bring some Zen into our classrooms to improve student behavior, increase student retention, and gain an overall joy of teaching? I actually have a great story I want to share with you that happened in my classroom this week. I was teaching my middle school band kids. It's combined 7th and 8th grade band. I only have about 15 kids in that class just because it's a brand new program, right? And we were in the middle of talking about our upcoming concert when I look over at the door and my principal is standing there. He has kind of an unusual look on his face and he quickly waves me over. So I count off the song, get the kids playing, and then go over around the corner. And all my boss says is that there was a medical emergency in the classroom next to mine, which is the gym. And so my students had to go out another way. I didn't ask anymore. He didn't tell me anymore, just that much. Of course, most of the students in the school are my students. So I was worried about who it was, how desperate the emergency. The only other thing he said was that an ambulance was going to be coming in. And of course, all of these middle school students had just seen the principal come in with a stressed look on his face and wave me over. So I had some decisions to make. How was I going to react to this? And how was I going to continue our practice without this potential tragedy hijacking the emotions of these volatile middle school students? So I took a deep breath, tapped into my own personal guide to Zen, and went back up to the front of the classroom. Of course, the students were asking, was I in trouble? I said no. They asked if they were in trouble, and I said no. And I said, all that we have to do is just go out this other way. There's something going on in the hallway, and we just don't want a bunch of students out there right now. So, of course, they started to speculate. But within about 5 seconds, I had them playing their next Christmas song, and we were off and running. Of course, at the end of the day, they all found out when the ambulance showed up at the pickup line. So, but the point is, it didn't have to hijack my rehearsal, and I didn't let it. And the students all remained calm because I did. I could have freaked out. I could have told them everything that was going on, but I didn't. I stayed Zen, and it was advantageous for all of us, right? So, that being said, in this episode, Dan and I share our expertise in these matters, which we couldn't do without the awesome support of Smart Music. One of my favorite resources that Smart Music provides for music teachers, in addition to this podcast and their awesome blog, are their webinars. These are live training sessions where they bring in experts to help you conquer a myriad of music education issues. In fact, that's the whole purpose behind Smart Music. It's giving you tools to help streamline your teaching. I've added a link in the show notes for one of my favorite webinars by one of my favorite Smart Music presenters, Dr. Giovanna Cruz. She shares in this webinar 8 ways that Smart Music can be used as a teaching tool in your classroom to help you be more effective and your students be more engaged. I've shared a link to her webinar in the show notes as well, so make sure you check that out. Now, without further ado, here is my chat with Dan.
I think, first of all, as you're saying, it's super important to get rid of guilt. And I think, and as you said, as teachers, we're givers. We, that old saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. I say teachers will not only empty the cup, they'll hand over the cup as well. And part of what I try to do is help you get your cup back and show you that you don't have to feel bad or guilty for asking for your cup back. You are worthy of your cup. You deserve your cup. And one of the first things I think of in terms of getting rid of guilt is the idea of permission and giving yourself permission to do the things you want to do. And it's hard, very hard for teachers who are such givers to do that. And I hope this comes out the right way. But I think in my experience, what I've seen is that it's especially hard for women and mothers because they expect so much of themselves. They are expected so much in sort of the stereotypical role that they play that they never take time for themselves and give themselves permission for self-care or mindfulness or just even a break. And so I think permission is the first thing. And I think also knowing that guilt, whatever you're feeling is normal. And that, if you just sort of, the Zen part of it is just recognizing it without judgment and saying, that's where I am, that's what I'm feeling right now. And then listening to your intuition about, okay, where do I need to go from here so that I can assuage that guilt and kind of move beyond it, because that's really the goal. The problem I think with guilt is it's just absolutely paralyzing. And we stop doing what we need to do and what we want to do to take care of ourselves because we feel bad and we think, oh, I can't do that. That's not right. I shouldn't do that. And it just is such a block, such an obstacle.
I totally agree. And I think that one of the first steps is really to do it anyway, right?
Right.
So you feel guilty or fear. Guilt is very akin to fear. And if you do it anyway, it expands your comfort zone. I quit my first teaching job to stay home with my kids because I felt like I was being torn into two, right? My mother job, my teaching job, and I love them both. Teaching middle school band and orchestra was like my dream job, right?
Wow.
But I chose to stay home with my kids. I was like, I can go back to teaching, and I have, and I love it. But for those years, it was about 8 or 10 years that I was pretty strictly stay-at-home mom. And about 7 years in, I want to say, that had been my life. That had been all that I had done. And that was where I was dedicated. And I had a very demanding husband at the time. And I decided to join my local, no, don't be angry, book club. Women's once a month book club. I would go with other women and sit for 2 hours and leave the kids home with their dad. And it was
fantastic.
It was crazy. I mean, but the guilt, right? And so I imagine that a lot of teachers, now I worked for years to get to the point then where I could go out on a day trip by myself, right? So it started with this 2-hour book club, and then because I just forced myself to do it, even though those first few times I was sitting there going, oh my gosh, should I be here? Oh, I feel so guilty. So anyway, there's more to that story, but we don't have to get into it. The point is, you feel guilty, you run at that guilt, and you do it anyway because you know it's good for you.
Right. And I think it's amazing that you did it. And one thought that you're making me think of is, if you're going to feel guilty for doing these things that are for you, why do them? or you're doing them, I don't want to say you're doing them wrong, but you're hamstringing yourself and you won't be able to enjoy them anyway. So getting rid of that guilt is really key.
Yeah. And the other way that I've kind of backhanded it is I think it's actually good for, I'm actually doing other people a service by taking care of myself. Do you feel that
absolutely.
that's true?
Oh, absolutely. I think, that saying again, you can't pour from an empty cup. If you make sure that you have what you need, you are going to be better for everybody else. And this isn't really music related, but I tell the story about how my family and I were cleaning the house one day. And I was like, I got to take a break. I just, so I stopped and I laid down on the couch and I was just planning for like 15 minutes or whatever. But everybody started cleaning a little bit more aggressively and drawers were starting to slam a little bit louder. And, I didn't say to them, well, you can take a break anytime you want, because I didn't have a death wish. But I wanted to say, I know I'm going to be better when I come back from this break. I'm going to be less tired, less grumpy, less cranky, and everybody is going to benefit because I took the break, not just me, but everybody else too. But it's hard. I understand when you're on the other side of that to see that and recognize that, but it is true.
Yeah, I totally agree. And let's talk about taking breaks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think teachers take a decent amount of breaks? Because honestly, I've worked in music retail as well. And there's this one guy I worked for who's like, teachers have the good life. They get 2 months off every summer, blah, 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 blah. They get all these holidays and weekends off. And, so I think from the outside, people are like, oh man, teachers have the good life, benefit packages and stuff. But I don't feel like we actually get that many breaks, nor do we give them to ourselves. We work through lunch. We work through our prep period.
Yes.
What are some ways that you've counseled teachers to take breaks?
Oh my gosh, this is where I am the Zen master, because I tell I'm the king at this, because it is so important, and teachers don't do that. Every teacher I know, including myself sometimes, today, for example, this just happened today. I was sitting in the lunch area with the other teachers, and a writing assignment was due and some kids didn't have it. So I said, bring it to me at lunch. I was popping up every 2 minutes for a new kid who came in. Oh, I've got my paper. And then, trying to slam down whatever I was eating in between. And some days are better than others. But I think one thing I talk about in terms of kind of corralling that and finding time to take the breaks for yourself, there's a couple things. One is creating rituals. The idea of saying, okay, this moment is for me, and creating that boundary and that margin where you say, no, nothing else can infringe on this. This is what I do on Monday mornings at 7 a.m. or whatever it is. I talk about one little ritual I have is I like coffee in the morning. So I'll make my coffee and I'll stop. I'll get mindful. I'll use my senses to smell the coffee, to hold the coffee, feel the mug in my hand, and I'll take that first sip. And I say, that first sip is for me, baby. That's just mine. And the rest of the cup may get cold. I may have other things to do, but I was present for that one sip. And you can do that with the coffee. You can do that with your lunchtime. If you make a ritual about, okay, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I'm going to shut the door. I have a blog post called, I think it's called The Magic of the Shut Door. We want to help kids. We want to have them come in at lunch, but it's okay if on Monday or Friday or Thursday or whenever you choose that you shut the door and say, I'm not available today, right? Doesn't mean you're never available. It just means that I'm taking this time for me. So that's a way. The other thing I talk about is what I call the 5, 10, 15 approach, which is everybody has 5 minutes. Everybody has 10 minutes. Everybody can carve out 15 minutes in your day. And depending on your day, if it's 5 minutes, what can you do? Well, I can listen to a song, right? Speaking about music teachers, music is transformative. It's transcendent. It will take you other places. And, that's one thing you can do. 10 minutes, you can call a friend. You can journal for a little bit, whatever is going to decompress the stress and be that break for you. And then 15 minutes, sometimes a little bit harder to come by, but you can, I always say you can call your mom depending on the mom. But there are different things that you can do for 15 minutes that will give you that break, give you that kind of detachment from whatever is driving you crazy. So I think those are some approaches, the rituals, the 5, 10, 15, and oh gosh, what was the other one I mentioned? Just setting the margins and the boundaries of things that you want to do for you.
I think boundaries are a huge one, but I want to share my couple things as well about taking a break. When you said rituals, I thought of the term that I like, which is totem, which is having little reminders set around you that, like your coffee experience, that's like a totem, right? I have only drank coffee for a few years, and I'm now obsessed with like mugs. Like I love the feel of it in my hand. Like I collect them from my favorite places. I have 2 from Rocky Mountain National Park. That is how much I love that place. Okay.
That's fantastic.
Right. And then I have a couple at school that I really love and when you see these things, it helps you be mindful. I had one teacher say that she loved surrounding herself with lights. So she strung like Christmas lights around her room. And when she has a second, she just turns off the lights and just loves to watch them sparkle.
Right.
You know, or
That's fantastic.
This is so funny. I have a blanket in my desk.
Fantastic.
And I sometimes take naps at lunch.
There you go. I did, there was a year that this just worked out, and I did what I talk about it in the Zen Teacher book. I did what I call Friday fun prep. Friday fun prep. On my prep period, on Fridays, I would watch a little Netflix, or I would make some popcorn. I had a little popcorn maker in my office that I brought in because I love popcorn. It's my favorite thing in the world. Or like you're saying, I would just kind of like check out for a while, you know, or whatever it was. But that was my time. And considering how much we work, and we were talking about guilt, but considering how much we work outside of the classroom, I did not feel guilty about taking that time at all. So I think, you know, that makes total sense. And I knew a drama teacher who during shows, I would go into the teacher's lounge and he'd just be sacked out on the couch. I mean, you know, because drama teachers and performing arts teachers work harder. And so I totally got it, you know, and I think that's totally legitimate, you know.
Yeah, so, just surrounding ourselves with things that we love.
Absolutely.
Whatever that happens to be. And then I love your 5, 10, 15 breakdown. Could we even say that you can do the same thing with 5, 10, or 15 seconds?
Oh, I never thought of that, but I don't see why not. I think even what you're making me think of is we don't breathe enough. Or we don't breathe deeply enough, I should say.
Even as music teachers, we don't. We teach kids how to breathe, and we don't do it ourselves.
Right. That's absolutely true. And I until now, I didn't make that connection that, of course, every music teacher I ever had talked about breathing and breathing deeply. And of course, we did it. I was a drama major and an actor, and that's where I learned all this stuff. And when I was thinking about, gosh, I'm feeling really stressed. I'm feeling burnt out. Am I going to be able to make it? I remembered the acting classes, and I was like, well, that's what teachers need, is the relaxation exercises, the being in the moment, the meditation, all the drama teachers had an expression they called a relaxed preparedness, where you're relaxed, but you're ready to perform. And I thought that's what we need. And it's all this stuff that you're talking about.
Yeah. I think I have, one of my favorite apps is called 7-Second Meditation.
Oh, wow. I'll have to check that out. I haven't heard of that.
And you can set it up to send you a notification. I have it set once a day. I have it set for my busiest time of the day, right? And so it goes off, and I look at my phone briefly, and it just says breathe. And then it gives me like a 5-second thing to think about, like feel your left hand. What is the sensation in your left hand right now? Smile.
And there's your 5 seconds that you were talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, and smile.
Exactly. Yeah. And the more we practice taking ourselves out of the situation like that and just taking a breath, taking 5 seconds, taking 10 seconds, walking outside for 15 seconds, or looking out the window for a second, right? And just escaping from, because we get the blinders on, right?
Right.
We get so intensely focused on what's happening in that moment that it feels like that moment is life entirely. Right.
We're on this treadmill and this merry-go-round and this habitual routine that we're in all the time. And you're reminding me of an article I read, and don't tell my students because I can't cite it, and I always tell them you got to cite your sources. But they said the expression I remember that blew my mind was keep waking up. And we don't. You just need to keep waking up. And when you talk about feel your left hand or look out the window, that's what I think they were talking about, is just stop throughout your day whenever you can, whenever you're reminded to. Maybe it's with an app or an alarm on your phone or whatever. Just to stop and notice what you notice. And again, the key thing in Zen is without judgment. Just noticing what is, which is really hard. And we don't do that. I mean, all you have to do is look at my Facebook feed to see the judgment going on, right? It's like everybody, that's all it's about, is just, I'm right, you're wrong. And just looking at what is, and like you said, looking out the window, seeing the rows in the backyard garden, which I like to do in my kitchen, or the clouds, or listening to the birds, just using your senses, tuning into your senses, and just recognizing what is, and not attaching any kind of a judgment to it, is just a magical moment, and nobody does it.
But we all should.
Oh, of course, yes. And, it starts with the breath. It starts with breathing, with just taking that 5 seconds to have a nice, slow, deep breath.
Do you think that that's kind of the key to dealing with these, conflicts that we have in our lives, whether it's a poorly behaved student or, I can cite literally like 5 things that happened in my classroom today that would be considered poorly behaved students, right? Like the 2 boys bickering, he's showing off, he's bragging, I'm not bragging, why can't you just be happy for me? To, kid you not, 8th grade band kids locking themselves in the band lockers.
Well,
are you
kidding
me? But yeah. And, or, if it's your principal who's sent you an email that, a parent was upset about something, or just give that kid that passing grade so he can play on the basketball team because he's the star basketball player. These things can genuinely upset us, but I think you're right about the non-judgment thing. How do we do that, though? How do we extract ourselves without feeling like we are giving up something?
That's a good question. And what you're making me think of is you had to explain those incidences independently so that we understood them. But what every teacher listening here knows is that sometimes all of those things that you mentioned are happening at the same time. And that's crazy making. And I was going through the roster in my head of things today too. And there was a moment where I was up in front of the class and they were just making me crazy. And I had to stop and say, just breathe, Danny, just breathe. And I just stopped right in the middle of what I was saying up in front. I don't care. They have to sit there anyway. So I might as well breathe. And I just took the deep breath, and then I was better. So, or a little better anyway, so that helps. I think, again, just stopping when you need to stop, not continuing on, noticing things as they are, and just kind of, even if it's like noticing I'm feeling stressed. Okay. We immediately go, oh, that's not a good feeling, or oh, that sucks, or oh, that's terrible. But if you just acknowledge it, like, wow, I'm stressed. Okay. Where do you go from there? How can I check in with my intuition about what I need to do? And just quickly, there's a whole exercise that I do on this, but I'll just give you kind of the quick version is, when it is as when you notice that, the key is to get still as much as you can, like I did today, just stopping to breathe, check in with your intuition, the little voice, and that's going to tell you where you need to go. And specifically, think in terms of compassion. And compassion can be sent out to 2 places. One, to other people, right? If the principal sends you that email that says the parent was upset, you could think something like, wow, I'll bet you the principal has a lot going on, and that wasn't fun for that principal to receive that email either, right? And just throw the compassion out into the universe toward that person. But the second part is more important, and again, something we don't do as teachers, is compassion for ourselves, and saying, I'm stressed, check in with the intuition. Okay, where's the compassion need to go out? Okay, fine, to other people, which we usually do. But then what compassion can I give myself? Can I stop and take a breath? Can I take that 5, 10, 15-minute break? Can I go home and have a nice hot bath, bubble bath, or whatever? Am I going to get that mani-pedi on the weekend, or whatever it is, right? And how can you show the compassion, not only that you need, but that you deserve? And so I think checking in with the intuition, and I always say you have to be still and you have to be silent, because I wrote a blog post called "Intuition Doesn't Scream." You have to be quiet to listen to that voice. It whispers. It doesn't scream. So those are some ideas.
That's fantastic. Absolutely. And when I think of compassion now, as a music teacher, of course, I'm obsessed with practice. Probably as an English teacher, you are as well, right?
Sure.
The more you
writing,
practice writing a 5-paragraph persuasive essay, the better you're going to get at it,
Sure.
But when it comes to practicing, I've found the more I practice compassion when I don't need it, the easier it is for me to tap into it. So
that's an amazing idea.
As part of my regular morning routine, I spend, between 5 and 25 minutes in meditation. And my quote unquote, I'm doing the air quotes, meditation really just consists of practicing feeling happy.
That's awesome.
And so I think about, gratitude is a great place to go.
Yes.
If you don't know where to start, I always tell my kids, my own kids, not my students. I probably should tell my students.
Well,
if you think about it, start with what's closest to you. I am so grateful for this coffee mug. I am so grateful for this couch that I'm sitting on. I am so grateful for my fireplace and the big windows where I can see the roses in my garden. And through that, we're able to open our hearts up to that feeling of compassion and,
absolutely,
and love and joy. And the more we can practice that when we don't need it, the easier it is to tap into it when we truly do.
Absolutely. I hope that people listening now really take that to heart, because that's a fantastic idea and everybody can do that. And gratitude is another thing I preach, and we could do a whole podcast just on gratitude, because it is such an amazing secret weapon in terms of happiness and joy and self-care. And I one of the quotes I have in the book is, when you are focused on what you're grateful for, it's really hard to be unhappy. And I think that's true.
Yeah, that is an amazing quote. I feel like I need to make like another meme pack. I say another because I did one for an earlier episode just of
fun.
Like amazing quotes. Just take these and learn, Gosh, okay, so you've used the term Zen a lot, and I, of course, know what that means because, I'm reading the Tao Te Ching right now.
Oh.
But how would you describe Zen?
Well, it starts, I was hesitant to call my book The Zen Teacher, because I know initially it comes from Zen Buddhism, and there can be a religious association with it, and that there, some people aren't comfortable with that. And but I said, that's what it is. And Zen is when you notice what is happening without judgment, kind of like I've been talking about, and you just accept it as it is. And there's no attachment to good, bad, no duality. It is what it is. In fact, I know a teacher who one of his favorite sayings is, it will just say something. He goes, well, it is what it is. And I just want to stop him and go, dude, I don't think you realize how Zen you're being when you say that. But that's what it is. It's just noticing what is without judgment. And I think we've gotten away from that, especially lately in this society of where there has to be this duality of right, wrong, good, bad, superior, inferior, all these dualities, instead of just approaching things and saying, I'm just, like you said, I'm just going to look at the rose, and the rose just is. And I'm just going to spend that moment. And this might be a little bit of a judgment, but saying that's beautiful. And I don't mind, being inaccurate on that with Zen, because I think we need more beauty in our life. I think we need to recognize more beauty. And if that goes against the purest idea of Zen, well, then, sue me, but I think that's really important. We need more beauty, but true Zen is just noticing what is without judgment.
The way that I like to think of it too, and tell me if this resonates with you, it's being able to accept uncomfortable feelings. Or maybe the way that I've said it for years, and I tend to like snag a theme and like go for it for a year and practice it, is being comfortable with discomfort, right? Like accepting that I'm uncomfortable in that that person emailed me, but that doesn't mean that it's bad.
Right.
Right.
I think that's a very enlightened viewpoint that not a lot of people realize or share. And what you're making me think of is, one of the things I talk about is the benefits of silence, and how in this world and this culture, we do not value silence. And silence is a secret weapon in self-care. It's a way. I always say silence is a gift you give yourself. And if you can turn off all the white noise, turn off all the television, the cell phones, the internet, all of that, and just be silent, you'd be amazed at how peaceful you feel. Except the problem with that sometimes is that then we sometimes we keep busy and keep that white noise on because we don't want to look at what is, because it is discomfort. It's uncomfortable and it's not pretty all the time. And the way we hide from it or the way we run from it is la, 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 all this stuff is going on all the time. And then we don't have to look at it. But if you get silent and you get still, oh my gosh, now I have to look at what is, and I get scared. So I think you're right. Learning to say, okay, my life isn't perfect. This isn't going well. This relationship is off. I have this pain. I have this unresolved issue, and just sitting with that, which is super hard. But again, like you said, with practice, you're not saying it's not so. You're just saying it is. And right now, I'm not going to judge it. I'm just going to say that is. And then when you have that calming moment, or you have that ability to just sit with it and to be comfortable with discomfort, then you can make a plan. And then when you come out of that, then you go fix it. Then you go take care of it, and you say, okay, these things weren't right. Now what can I do about them?
Yeah. If you're always just running for it, it's fight. What is it? Fight, flight, or freeze. Right?
Oh, what was the last one?
Freeze.
Freeze. Oh, yeah. I should know that one because I do that a lot.
Fight, flight. Yeah. I know, me too. Yeah. I'm a freezer.
Yeah. So am I.
I'm not a fighter. I get that. I don't run away from things. I just freeze. But unless we're silent, we can't process it. We're just ignoring it.
Yes.
And as a music
we've
teacher,
become Zen masters at that.
Right?
Yeah.
There's so many parts and pieces to this. And you're right. It's not something that we're taught as teachers. We're not taught this whole, I call it the lifestyle piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
How to regularly practice self-improvement and self-care so that we can refill that bucket and take back the bucket that we've given away. Yes. I love that you said that.
I'm sorry, you just got me fired up now. The problem is that the assumption that we accept is that teaching is the lifestyle. This job could be 24/7 if we let it. And that's why nobody else is going to take care of us. Nobody else, like you said, there's no program, there's no training, there's nothing. That's why I started doing what I'm doing, is I thought I was yelling about how teachers should be taken care of, looking around going, nobody's doing it. And I finally went, well, who am I? But I'm going to do what I can. And I decided I'm going to help teachers just by sharing these strategies that worked for me. But nobody else is going to do it. Nobody's going to come up to me and go, you know what, Danny, you need a nap. You look tired, right? I have to choose that for myself. And if we don't do that, it's not going to happen. And that's why I talk about intentional and radical self-care. And I kind of stole radical self-care from Anne Lamott, who I adore. She's an amazing writer. And she talks about self-care. But I added intentional. And intentional means it's on purpose. It's a choice. Can't just let it happen randomly or serendipitously. And radical means it's not usual. It's not what everybody else is doing. So like that time when I took a break from cleaning the house, everybody else, it ruffled some feathers because it wasn't the status quo. It wasn't what everybody else was doing. And that's what we have to become okay with, is saying, if I take care of myself, because this isn't, I love teaching. I can't imagine doing anything else, but it's not everything I am. And if I don't stop and take care of the other parts of me, I'm going to get lost. And I have to work on intentional and radical self-care, even if it goes against what's expected and if it ruffles feathers. And I wish more people would do that.
I have honestly, no, you're right, actually. Now that I think about it, I have a lot of Facebook friends who are music teachers, obviously. And especially those who are high school teachers. We're recording this episode in the fall when it's marching band season.
Oh,
and so high school teachers are juggling a lot a lot because it's marching band season, it's football. They have to do pep band for the football games. They have to do still their full load of classes, which are often AP classes and more performing ensembles. They're still expected to put on concert band concerts and jazz band concerts in addition to the rigors of marching band. And there's almost like this badge of pride that they worked 14-hour days.
Right.
I showed up in the dark. I'm going home in the dark. Like my wife had to bring me dinner because I was teaching all day. And I almost want to be, and there's the part of me that's like, oh yeah, you go, bro. You're a hard worker. And then there's part of me that's like, I want to be like, yeah, I'm off today.
Yeah.
Like, look at my pictures from my hike this afternoon.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And here's the thing I'll say, and I'm going to be very transparent about this. I'm going to take back something that I said. My daughter was considering joining marching band. And I said, well, now, sweetie, marching band is not an activity. It's a lifestyle. I did say that because it consumes you. It absolutely, and that goes for the band director too. And like I said, performing arts teachers work harder than anybody on the school. So my daughter decided not to do the marching band, but she decided to get involved in what she calls a scholarship pageant. Oh. And she became, we live in a little town called Poway, and she's now Miss Teen Poway. Also a lifestyle because there were 3 or 4 events every weekend that dad gets to drive her to and mom gets to drive her to. And so we help out with that. But so, yeah, there are certain activities that are lifestyles, but teaching is only a lifestyle if you choose it to be. And we all know teachers who do that. And maybe, we compare ourselves to them, but we don't realize things like, well, they don't have a spouse or significant other, or they don't have kids, or, and maybe they can spend dark to dark, and if we can't, we can't beat ourselves up for that. We all each have our own story and we have to honor that.
Yeah. Comparison is the thief of joy.
That's absolutely true.
It really, truly is. And if that's going to be the downfall of our society because of social media, how we can see and compare ourselves to everybody out there who's flaunting their very best self, and we compare it to our very worst self. But really, comparison is the thief of joy. And I'll have you know, this is what an overachiever I am. When I was a junior in high school, I was in marching band and did the scholarship pageant.
Oh my gosh, that's a lot. That is a lot.
Played French horn for my talent. So.
Oh, perfect. I get tired just thinking about that, but yeah.
Then I ended up becoming the drum major of the marching band, so the pageant thing took second place. But yeah, you don't have to preach it to me. How old's your daughter?
16.
Mine's 15.
Oh, yeah. Well, and they're finding out what they want to do, and I want to encourage that, of course.
Let's just laugh another minute. That at teenage girls.
Okay, I'm going to get in trouble if I do that with my daughters and with your audience. So I'm just going to plead the fifth on that one. But
that's all right. Most of my audience probably knows. They probably teach them.
I do have a. You're making me think of a high school music teacher story. If I can share it with you,
please.
That kind of has to do with this conversation. I was teaching drama, and our theater had not been built yet. The school was being built, and we had these little bungalows, these little portable rooms, and there was a band bungalow and a drama bungalow, and I was in the drama bungalow. And the band teacher and choir teacher had an accompanist who would come over and help the cello players, and they would come into the drama room, and it was on my prep, so I would just sit and listen to them, which was beautiful. But I've never forgotten, this was 25 years ago, and the accompanist would play a piece of classical music and have the cellists close their eyes and just visualize whatever it made them think of, wherever they wanted the music to take them. And like I said earlier, music is transformative, it's transcendent. And I never forgot that, because the way I looked at it is that, first of all, that was a very Zen moment for them to just be in that moment, be present, be mindful of what this music was doing to them, and what it made them think of, and where it took them emotionally, mentally, whatever, probably even spiritually. But the way I looked at it was, she wasn't just teaching them to play music, she was teaching them to experience music. And I thought that was huge. And I never forgot that. Like I said, it was a quarter of a century ago. So that's a very Zen moment that I wanted your listeners to know that I was thinking about, and the possibilities with music, and how music can help you get to those Zen mindful moments.
Well, it's the same as life, right?
Mm-hmm.
We aren't just playing life. We need
Right.
we need to be experiencing.
Sure. Now you tell me. Okay, fine.
Life. Well, Dan, I've kept you long enough. Speaking of, spending time doing what, we should. I thank you so much. This has been just a charming conversation and such a pleasure.
I agree. Thank you. Yes, I had a blast. I appreciate it.
Good. Any final words for our Music Ed Mentor podcast listeners?
One quick story, if you have time.
Yeah.
Our yearbook teacher sent out a notice, and I've told the story a few times, and it said for teachers to fill in this blank. If my students learned only one thing from me this year, it would be, and then we had to fill it in, and she published it in the yearbook. And I put, if my students could only learn one thing from me this year, it would be that they're enough. And I want teachers to get that same message, that you are enough, that you're working hard enough, that you're worthy of your time and your self-care and all of those things that you desire, and that you're, don't feel like there needs to be more. You're doing enough, and you are enough. And I just want to thank you all for all you do for kids. And again, especially the music and the performing arts teachers, because they knock themselves out. So thank you.
Well, my friends, in addition to all the great tips today and giving you a link to Dan's resources in the show notes, I've created a list of some of the apps we talked about and a couple of others that I use regularly for you to download and use. You can access this list on the show notes page as well, so be sure to go to smartmusic.com/blog and search for podcast 37. While you're there, sign up for your teacher account of Smart Music and explore how you can streamline your teaching tasks so you can do more of what matters most: work with your students. I also want to let you know our next few episodes move us back into the practical classroom application. We'll be talking about easy technology implementation with the guru of music technology and a craft beer enthusiast, James Frankel. About empowering your music students. We'll be talking about incorporating the ORF approach in your classroom, no matter what level you teach, and how to build an elementary music program from scratch. So much good stuff. I really can't wait to share it with you. So be sure you don't miss a thing. Subscribe to this podcast, and it would absolutely make my year if you would also give us a 5-star review. It is your positive feedback that helps us reach more music teachers who need exactly what we're talking about. Until next time, my friends, keep teaching on.